Tell Pat to drop 40 with a left hand and then we'll talk.
So yeah, Larry Bird just responded to Pat Beverly after he insulted Bird's legacy and made one of the most disrespectful takes in NBA history. Today, I'll be breaking down everything, from Beverly's comments to the clapback from the fans and other players like Eddie Johnson and Jalen Rose. And if you think this is just another Pat Bev controversy, wait till you see how Bird destroyed his whole career with just one statement. It all started around late August on the Pat Bev podcast, and Pat Beverly was doing what he does best, talking. They got into one of those weird NBA comparisons, Kevin Durant or Larry Bird. And this happened.
And if Kevin Durant was playing when Larry Bird was playing, he would average 50.
Nobody was averaging 50.
Kevin Durant would have been.
Kevin Durant's one of my favorite players of all time, but I know
Within minutes, the internet and the fans went crazy. And within hours, the clip was everywhere. Every comment section turned into a war zone. One side dropping KD's advanced stats and three-point percentages, the other side pulling out Bird's MVPs and those 80s highlights where he's lighting teams up. By the end of that weekend, it wasn't just a hot take anymore. It was a full-on culture war. Old school versus new school, grit versus skill, trash talk versus Twitter talk. And sitting in the middle of all that chaos was Pat Beverly, a role player with a microphone who somehow managed to get the basketball world arguing about one of the greatest ever. But before we go any deeper into the Bird versus KD war, you gotta understand why it felt so ridiculous coming from someone like Pat Beverly. Pat Beverly isn't an NBA legend. He's an ex-player who's known way more for his mouth than for his scoring. I mean, he was a guard out of Chicago, a second-round pick in 2009, who had to take the long way into the NBA. He played in Ukraine, then Greece, then Russia, before finally breaking through with the Houston Rockets in 2013. From day one, his identity was clear. He was always annoying elite players. That's literally how he made his name. The dude hounded Russell Westbrook so much that Pat Bev defense became a personality trait. Over the years, he played for Houston, the Clippers, the Timberwolves, the Lakers, Bulls, and the Sixers, and at every stop, you knew what you were getting. A role player that'd annoy the heck out of other players. But here's the thing. That same edge that made him a defensive pest on the court somehow turned into what he is currently. In 2022, he joined Barstool Sports and launched the Pat Bev podcast with Roan. And from that point, it was clear, Pat Bev had found his new lane. Unlike most players who tone it down on the mic, Bev doubled down on his annoying personality. And that's why his mic matters way more than his box scores ever did. And this isn't new behavior for him. If you followed Pat Bev long enough, you know controversy follows him like a shadow. Remember the time he made a list ranking the whitest black players in the league? Yeah, this one.
You got Jared Allen.
Why? Just because he likes anime?
I mean, okay.
Just because he has sweet sideburns?
You asked, you didn't make...
No, I didn't ask.
Or when he called Chris Paul a cone. Yeah, that's classic Bev.
He can't guard. He literally can't guard.
Chris Paul can't guard anybody?
No, he can't. Everyone knows that. What do we call him? Cone. You know what you do with cones? You make a move. What does the cone do?
Stay still.
Exactly. He's a cone.
Just loud and wrong every time. In the era of player podcasts, where ex-players are turning mics into media empires, Pat Bev plays a specific role, the disruptor. While guys like JJ Redick and Draymond Green try to educate fans, Beverly's built a niche on chaos. Hot takes that will definitely piss you off. So when he said KD clears Bird, people didn't just hear a bad basketball opinion. They heard a professional instigator doing what he's best at, stirring up a debate that guarantees clicks, comments, and reaction videos. But this time, he made a big mistake by bringing Larry Bird into his nonsense. Because Larry Bird wasn't just another NBA legend. He was the beast other legends were scared of. See, when people talk about Larry Bird, they don't just bring up stats. They talk about moments. The kind of moments that make you stop and think, nah, that can't be real. Like the 1984 finals where he straight up dragged the Celtics to a title. The Celtics had just been embarrassed in Game 3, and Bird called his teammates soft on live TV. Most guys would lose the locker room after that. Instead, he came back averaging 28 and 14, outworked everyone on the floor, and won Finals MVP. Then there's the 1991 playoffs against Indiana, where Bird took a hard fall, cracked his cheekbone, got concussed, and disappeared into the tunnel. Everyone thought he was done. Then, out of nowhere, the man walks back out like it was a WWE entrance. The Garden went insane, and guess what? He led the Celtics to win that game. And none of this hype makes total sense until you remember where he came from. French Lick, Indiana. I mean, these guys had a population of barely 2,000. He had no fancy AAU circuit and no hype machine behind him. This was just a kid who worked until he was better than everyone else. At Indiana State, he turned a small school into a national story, taking them all the way to the 1979 title game. And that's where the whole Bird versus Magic rivalry began. Magic won that night, but Bird got something more permanent: respect. When Larry Bird got drafted by Boston, the Celtics were a mess, 29 wins, no direction, and no identity. Then Bird arrived and everything flipped overnight. They jumped to 61 wins in his rookie season, and anyone who actually understands the NBA knows that kind of turnaround doesn't happen by luck. From there, the 80s became Bird's playground. 3 championships in 1981, 1984, and 1986, 3 straight MVPs, something only a few players in history have ever done, and 12 All-Star appearances. But what really defined him wasn't the hardware, it was the way he played the game. Bird played basketball like a chess grandmaster. He didn't rely on raw athleticism. He relied on reading the floor, predicting movement, and punishing mistakes before they even happened. He passed like a point guard, shot like a machine, and carried himself like he knew the script before the rest of the league got the memo. Teammates said he'd literally tell them where to stand, hit them in stride with a perfect pass, and if they missed, he'd roast them right there on the court. By the time he retired in 1992, he'd done everything there was to do. Championships, MVPs, and a legacy that still shapes the league today. Oh, and remember that statement Bird made about his left hand?
Didn't Bird shoot left-handed for an entire game against Portland?
Scoring 47 points. You're especially using your left hand.
Oh.
That wasn't some made-up flex, it actually happened. And it's one of the craziest stories in NBA history.
And he's at 87% and 6th in the league right now.
Back in 1986, Larry Bird faced the Portland Trail Blazers and decided he was going to play the game entirely with his left hand. And this was not because he was injured, but in his words, he was saving his right hand for the Lakers. That night, Bird dropped 47 points, 14 rebounds, and 11 assists. A triple-double, while using his offhand for most of the game. To understand how wild that is, imagine an NBA player today trying that in a real game. Not in practice, not in a preseason match. A live game. It would break the internet. But Bird did it like it was just another night at work, and then followed it up by beating the Lakers a few days later. That's what makes Pat's take sting more. When you say something like Kevin Durant clears Larry Bird, it's like ignoring the fact that Bird was out here dropping 47 with his weak hand. Now compare that to Durant. Durant's an amazing scorer, sure. By age 21, he was already leading the league in scoring. By 28, he had 2 Finals MVPs and a reputation as the most unguardable player of his era. Keyword, his era. Because Bird was doing things that broke basketball logic before social media or sports science existed. That's why fans brought the left-hand story back when Beverly made his claim. It wasn't nostalgia, it was evidence that Bird didn't need an era to boost him. The era needed him to evolve. So when Pat Bev says KD would have dominated the 1980s, the real question becomes, could KD have done what Bird did in that environment? Because here's the thing, KD's greatness has always existed in controlled environments. Oklahoma City was his lab, Golden State was his cheat code, and Brooklyn was his science experiment gone wrong. His time at Phoenix felt like an unfinished demo. He's always been in systems built for him, not in teams he had to build himself. When Bird walked into Boston in 1979, the Celtics were falling apart, and he rebuilt them. KD's OKC team was young, talented, and already stacked with future MVPs. Bird didn't join greatness, he created it. While Durant joined it twice, KD benefits from space, pace, and safety. No hand-checking, no clothesline fouls, and no dudes like Bill Laimbeer trying to decapitate you. He's a master of the modern game, but the modern game is a safe sandbox compared to what Bird played in. Bird's era tested your will before your jumper. KD's era tests your Wi-Fi connection before your shot clock. And mentality-wise, they couldn't be more different. Bird wanted to crush you, not just win. He'd humiliate you, talk trash, and call your plays out mid-possession just to watch you melt. So, don't get it twisted. Durant is one of the best in this era, but Bird's presence was foundational. One reshaped basketball, while the other was just another talented player in a modern, easier version of it. So saying KD clears Bird is like comparing an iPhone to the guy who invented electricity. And that's the thing Pat Bev never understood. Bird wasn't just physically gifted, he was mentally dangerous. Every story about Larry Bird sounds exaggerated until you realize they all come from people who actually played against him, and they all tell the same story. He knew what you were going to do before you even thought about doing it. Take Reggie Miller, for example. Miller once told the story of his rookie season when he made the mistake of trying to talk trash to Bird. Bird looked at him like he had just broken an unspoken rule. Then he told Reggie he was the rookie and that he didn't even deserve to talk to him yet.
He's at the free throw line and gamesmanship and talking a little bit. Just try to ice the shooter a little bit. You know, I did that once, and then I kind of did it again, right? So he gets the ball from the official dribblers once. He's like, Reggie, are you freaking kidding me? Reggie, are you freaking kidding me? I'm the best shooter this game has ever seen. You think you're gonna be able to ice me as he's talking? Next one, wah. Damn. I walked to the other side, and Kevin McHale goes, yeah, that was kind of stupid of you to do something like that, right?
Bird proceeded to score effortlessly for the rest of the quarter, then told Reggie to come back when he had earned the right to talk. Then there's Shawn Kemp. He was this young, high-flying newbie who thought he could intimidate anybody, but Bird took that personally. During one game, Bird baited Kemp into biting on fakes, out-rebounded him on positioning alone, and dropped buckets without breaking expression.
He just shook his head at me. He said, man, it's going to be a fucked up night for you.
So what did he put up?
I think he gave me, I think he gave me 46 and 3.
And then there's that legendary three-point contest moment.
Who coming in second? Let's take the picture.
Where'd you place?
He beat me. He beat me that day. He beat me.
It's been told 100 times, but it never gets old because of what it reveals. Bird walked into the locker room before the contest, looked around at all the other shooters and said, "Who's finishing second today?" He wasn't joking, though. At that point, he was already plotting. Then he went out there, hit every shot he needed, and walked away with his finger in the air before the last ball even dropped. Tell me what else can top that. That was aura, defined. What made Bird terrifying wasn't just that he was talented. It was that he predicted his success in real time and then executed it. Guys like Magic Johnson, who battled him for nearly a decade, said Bird's biggest weapon wasn't his jumper, it was his mind. Magic would joke that Bird could trash talk you and coach your defensive rotation at the same time.
That boy, he can play, man. He turned it out.
And Bird didn't just talk to his opponents. He talked to their coaches, the bench, the fans, even the broadcasters mid-game. That's where Pat Bev's comparison completely collapses. Beverly talks for attention, Bird talked for control. One's podcasting while the other was programming. Even today's players acknowledge Bird's psychological edge. Paul George once talked of how Larry Bird, who at the time was retired and was now in the front office, walked into a gym, in slacks no less, and calmly drained a three-pointer. Just like that. Technically, Bird's game was almost ahead of its time. His jumper had this high release that was impossible to block, and his footwork was deceptively perfect. It was always squared and always balanced, even when fading. His passing? That's what made him elite. He saw angles nobody else did, and while most players were reacting to defenses, Bird was anticipating them. He had this almost supernatural sense of timing. Bird knew the exact moment to cut, when to slip a screen, when to thread a pass, and the perfect second to pull up for a shot. He could trick defenders into a false sense of security, make them think they had him figured out, and then completely embarrass them the very next possession with a move they never saw coming. And the intimidation factor was real. Opponents have admitted that Bird's trash talk wasn't just about ego, it got in their heads. He'd call his shots mid-game, and once he hit them, he'd remind you about it until you cracked. Every generation has its legends, but Bird's aura never faded. You can ask players across eras from Jordan to LeBron to Paul Pierce. They all speak about him with the same mix of fear and respect. And the craziest part? He did it with a body that looked more like a math teacher than a modern athlete. That's how powerful his mind was. But if you think it was just mental, you're missing half the story. The 1980s NBA was a battlefield. Every night was physical, unforgiving, and designed to punish the weak-minded and the soft-bodied. Take the rules, for example. In that era, hand-checking was allowed. That means defenders could literally lean on you, push you and slow you down with their hands while you tried to drive. And it didn't stop there. Illegal defense rules were stricter, meaning teams had to rely on individual matchups more than complicated zone schemes. Driving into traffic wasn't just tough, it could end your night with a bruise or even worse. The game demanded resilience, and Bird thrived here. He didn't have a super athletic body. He had anticipation, IQ, and an ability to navigate chaos. Fast forward to today. KD, Steph, LeBron, they play in a world that's faster, yes, but also engineered for efficiency by default. The defensive 3-second rule, illegal hand-checking, and spacing innovations create open lanes that didn't exist in Bird's day. The rise of the three-point shot changed everything. Nowadays, you don't have to fight through traffic in the paint. Sometimes a deep three from way beyond the arc is enough to decide a game. That's not to say modern players aren't insanely talented, but the challenges they face are just very different from what guys like Bird had to deal with. Talk about the fan culture too. The NBA wasn't plastered across TikTok and Instagram, it was local. Celtics fans knew Bird's story, Pistons fans lived and died with Detroit's toughness. The connection was raw, regional, and authentic. You didn't just watch a team, you experienced it. Compare that to today, the AAU brotherhood model, social media hype, and 24/7 coverage. Players move around, teams prioritize brands first, and the rivalries that used to define beefs are replaced by highlights and hashtags. Sure, the modern game is faster, but something is missing. The grit, the loyalty, and the beefs that didn't make the highlight reel but defined the NBA. And let's talk preparation. In the 80s, players had gyms, weights, and some basic conditioning. And nutrition? That was mostly whatever your team's cafeteria served. Recovery was ice baths, and maybe a massage if you were lucky. Bird's ability to dominate night after night in that environment speaks to his work ethic and basketball brain. Now, players have personalized trainers, advanced nutrition, sleep monitoring, cryotherapy, full-time analytics, and recovery tech that sounds like NASA designed it. So basically, KD may be talented, but he isn't facing 1980s defense, bruising hand-checkers, and rule books designed to slow you down physically. Bird didn't have the spacing, the screens, or the modern tech to rely on. And if you think Bird let the disrespect slide, think again.
There's a reason he talks for a living, because his game never did the talking.
Yeah, he wasn't bluffing. That wasn't ego. That was dominance. You know, classic Bird. And let's be honest, Beverly's perspective has a certain bitterness. I mean, he wasn't a superstar, he was a role player, a pest, a guy who made life miserable for stars on the floor. He never carried a team or defined an era. His legacy doesn't include MVPs, rings, or generational dominance. And now, he's resorted to saying weird things like this on his podcast, claiming KD is better than Bird, picking fights with legends, and generating controversy just to stay relevant. This is the modern NBA podcaster trap. Beverly is smart enough to know that the algorithm rewards hot takes. Every time he throws a provocative statement out, KD over Bird, LeBron versus MJ, whatever it is, it explodes across social media. But here's the catch, clicks don't equal truth. Beverly is getting attention because he stirs the pot, not because he has the credentials to be involved in a conversation like this. You see this everywhere now with players like Austin Rivers and Kendrick Perkins. There's a trend of role players leveraging platforms to amplify opinions far beyond what their careers earned them. Beverly fits right into this mold, but ultimately, his takes are a substitute for what he couldn't achieve on the floor. Contrast that with Bird. His psychological game didn't need amplification. Bird commanded fear, respect, and attention naturally. Beverly, meanwhile, commands attention only because of the mic and the controversy. And the irony is thick. The effrontery Beverly has to call out Bird, one of the most feared competitors in NBA history, while never having carried a team to an NBA Finals, never having redefined his era, never having been the player everyone prepared for before the first whistle. So every time you hear Beverly or another role player turned podcaster spill a hot take, keep Bird's words in mind. Talking for a living only matters when your game has already done all the talking. And as you'd expect, the old school guys weren't having it. Eddie Johnson jumped in and set it straight. You have zero clue how good Larry Bird was. Jalen Rose weighed in too, in an interview with ESPN. He said KD was talented, but he sided with Bird. His exact words were, "I'm going with Larry Legend at this point in their careers." He also pointed out something fans won't forget. Durant's move to the 73-9 Warriors leaves a permanent mark on how people see his legacy. So here's the takeaway. Larry Bird wasn't just a player. He was a mind, a leader, and a strategist. Someone who earned respect through every game, every possession, and every moment on the court. Pat Beverly might throw out hot takes for clicks, KD might light up the modern stat sheets, but Bird's influence, that's timeless. The contrast couldn't be clearer. Bird's era demanded proof and toughness. And that's why debates like KD clears Bird feel fun online, but sound funny when you actually understand basketball. If you loved this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into NBA stories, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Who do you really think could match Bird in his prime? Well, apart from MJ,